to call the meeting to order and ask everybody to rise for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're going to start out with citizen comments. This first part of the meeting, you have, if you'd like to address the board, you can step to the podium, cite your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Any citizen comments? Okay. We'll move on to celebrations. Adam.
Good evening, board members. For celebrations this evening, 3 stories to cover that are on the website. The first is that for the second time in the last, I think, 4 years, the high school was awarded the College Board AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award, which is a mouthful, but essentially it is a reflection of our computer science program showing gender equity in those classes. And as you might recall, this was one of the goals of our STEAM initiative back in 2016 when that was started. So it's nice to see that we're still achieving one of those aspects of that initiative. We will be updating our poster, our banner back on the wall to reflect the second award from the College Board. Second story is high school senior Martin won the 2003 Congressional App Challenge. He collaborated through his course at the Williamston Talent Center with students from 2 other area school districts and created what's called the Snacks Maps app. And there's actually a demonstration, if you're interested, you can go into the website on that page, and actually he has a screencast where he and his classmates explain how that app works. That was selected by Representative Slotkin's office as the winner for her congressional district, and it's actually pretty impressive, showing competitive pricing for snacks at various food and grocery stores in the area using the app. So very nice job, and one of the things that we want to continue to work with is our communication with Williamston Talent Center to make sure the things that our students that are doing and accomplishing in those programs are getting back to us, so we can continue to publicize those and make our community aware of what's taking place with our students. So congratulations to Martin and his colleagues for that very impressive award. And then rounding out celebrations for this evening, continuing in a long tradition of Williamston teachers who have been nominated for and either gone on to be finalists or, in one case, win the entire thing. We have another Williamston educator who's been nominated for Michigan Teacher of the Year, Cassandra Eberhardt, who teaches 7th grade social studies, my personal favorite class in the district over at Williamston Middle School. And she has, since this has been posted, moved on to the next round. So she's cleared the first round of the process and is moving forward with her nomination. So very deserving, outstanding teacher, and whether she moves on or not, very deserving of the nomination, and just an awesome part of our team. So just a few celebrations this evening, pending any questions.
Do you have any questions for Adam? Okay, moving on to educational update.
All right, so I'm going to temporarily relocate, and then I'll move back to the table. So this is a presentation on our proposed bond initiative for August. There's been a lot of work that's been going on over the last several months since the last time I presented to the board, which I think was back in November. And we want to kind of make sure you're up to speed on all the things that are taking place, and then kind of get a reminder, a refresher on the path forward and the timeline for how this will work. So to start off with, we have the agenda. I'm going to, as you can read, I'm going to pause and bring up some of our partners and allow them to introduce themselves, and so you have an opportunity to put a face with a name.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. We've been had the great opportunity to work through the district over the past few weeks and months, but this is our first opportunity to come before you as a board. So thank you for having us. My name is Rob Crow. I'm a vice president with the Crispin Company, the construction manager partner component of the team. There are other members of the team that we'll talk to as well. But I have some deep local roots in the local area. I have a great passion for K-12 construction, and we are excited to get this going even further. We've got it, the ball is rolling. We're happy to make this update to you here today and talk a little bit more as the process unfolds. So I'm going to turn it over to another associate from Crispin here, and then we'll get going.
My name is Brett Gillespie. I'm the bond services manager for the Crispin Company. My job is starting with scope development, trying to decide what's going to be built with the community, and moving all the way up to the campaign phase, and helping with that informational and factual campaign with the district. And I'll turn it over to.
Good evening, my name is Todd Pardon. I'm CEO of French Associates. We are an architecture, planning, and engineering firm, and our passion is building environments that achieve excellence for administrators, students, and the community through schools. That's all we do, are schools, and so we're really delighted to be with you tonight.
Thank you.
So I'll be brief because there's nothing here that you have not already heard or are not aware of, but for those watching at home perhaps, the bottom line is we have the opportunity to address a number of significant infrastructure equipment and safety needs throughout the district while maintaining the current tax rate through a 0 mil increase bond initiative. You'll see in some of the future slides some comparisons to other districts in the area and a number of other data points that I think will kind of explain this in more detail. But the one point I would want to lead with is when you look at the facility and safety needs that can be addressed, I think also throughout the meeting tonight, you're also going to see some reminders, not that you need it, the great things that the district is doing that kind of go hand in hand with this initiative to update our facilities equipment. There's nothing superfluous in this proposal. These are all essential items to maintaining the programming and infrastructure that we have. Some of the things that we see other districts doing in the area are really awesome and nice, but that's not the point of this. We're not going that grand with this. We're really looking at making sure we have safe, functional, and efficient facilities for our students and staff to come to every day. But as you'll see later in the evening, when Dr. Cluck talks about the academic output and outcomes of the district, when Ms. Tynan talks about financial stability that we've created over the last several years, you'll start to see again, or as a reminder of the district's in a strong situation, and this bond is kind of the next step forward to make sure that our facilities are matching the other aspects of the district. So I'll pause there and turn it back over to our partners to go through some of the more of the details of the bond, and then I'll wrap up towards the end.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so I imagine several people watching or here on the board today have a good understanding of this. We wanted to also provide this update for folks, the community members who may be listening at home as well. So kind of what is the path that we're on here to help support the school district in developing this and then getting it to a point where a potential bond can be considered and acted upon by the school board. So this chart here is just really to talk about, you've got a team of partners now who are excited to be here and support that process. We are not here to tell you how to do things or dictate that in any way. We are here to come alongside the school district, help understand, listen, lend some professional expertise in that arena, and kind of navigate a conversation and prioritizing and planning. So there's a lot of components that are listed out on that chart, from the facility assessment, through a building study, down into meetings with district members, stakeholders, community members, doing surveys and forums, helping to understand what this is and kind of get a good process in place to develop a long-term strategy and prioritization. So it's a collaborative effort. We're really excited to be a part of that team and just help the process along. And if you advance the chart, so here's another little graphical representation of what that process looks like and how we get, in a general sense, from starting this initiative on through to what could end up becoming what we hope is a very successful construction process and facilities improvements. So these will be some general themes to talk about, and then I'll transition over to more specific on what does that look like on the calendar to dates. But in a general sense, what do we want to do? We want to understand kind of what are the needs and wants and desires of the school district. We work through that in alignment of the vision. We go through the needs assessment to try to help get some quantified data to that. What are some priorities and what could those items cost? We engage with the community as a team to try to help get as much dialogue and input from key stakeholders as possible to best understand what the different members on the process team want to talk through. We go through, and because of a variety of reasons I won't get into all the details on, we will go to the state treasury and to submit an application with board's awareness and then ultimately approval to get that into the system. And then we engage, pending that this is the will of the board to move forward to the vote. We'll go through the campaign phase to make sure we engage the community and inform them. We'll help through the process of two sides of the campaign, an informational component, and then also potentially an advocacy component if that is so desired by the community. And then after what we would hope will become a successful vote, we would then transition more into the deep design phase of that, engaging again with the community to make sure we're capturing some topics through that phase, and then into construction, which could last, as long as it appropriately needs to deliver that set of priorities that will be thoughtfully developed and engage exactly with what the district needs to do over that progression. So that's a general sense of how it's happening, and I'll pass it to Todd to talk through some of the specifics of the dates as they come.
Yeah, so thank you. So this slide is really some of the milestones that we'll need to cover over the next few months. The slide after this is a little bit about how we got to this place. So the first slide is January, February, and I'll expand on that in a minute. But essentially, we've been going through with professional engineers and architects and evaluating your facilities. We've met a few times now with steering committees, and we're starting to gather input from the community. There's been a survey that's gone out. So January, February has been what I'll call a lot of reconnaissance on your existing conditions. March is really where we hone that and we come up with a steering committee recommendation. There's a skeleton of that that's been created. We're going to prioritize that and refine that in the month of March. Big key date here is March 25th, where there's a pre-qualification meeting with the Department of Treasury. That is a formal process. We will help walk through that. Dale Jerome with our office has been through hundreds of these, and so he's really very, very familiar with how to follow that process. But I want to call out one key point. The distance between the beginning of March and March 25th is not a lot of time, and so we want to really go into March with a really refined set of plans and priorities, so that after, once we hit the 25th, we have our final assessment. April, assuming all goes well in March, April is when you would begin the community outreach and the education program, all that leading to the board having a call for election that we just described. That really is a formal process that your legal counsel, your bond counsel will help lead through that formal process. That date's May 6th. The external community outreach program would begin as soon as that formal program is executed. And then it's the rest of the summer leading to August 6th for the election day. We go to the next slide real quick. How we kind of got to January, February in that list, just to kind of remind everybody where we've been. We really started this as a group in November. We've had initial assessments and walkthroughs. We've had informational staff meetings as well. There was a community survey that was released. It's come back as well in January 16th. The survey's closed, about 414 responses. And there was a meeting just a few days ago, January 31st, to call through some of that and begin planning for the next stages of this. So we're in that February to March time period where we refine all this information and present it to the board.
I'm taking this one. This is a graph that Nate at PFM prepared for us, showing our debt structure. The green section is what we have currently committed to, and then the gray is if this bond is approved by the community. So you can see there that our current millage rate is 7.84 mils. We have already agreed, or the community has already agreed to pay that same millage through, sorry, I can't see it up there, 2030, whether they vote yes or no on this bond renewal or not. And again, I know we call this a renewal because the millage is not changing, but this is completely new debt. Once we take that debt on, even though we get the funds starting probably 25, 26, what basically happens is we are pushing the school loan revolving fund payments out so that we can get those funds from the bond now, and we push out those payments and then it extends for the 30 years. You will see we have a drop off in 2036 where potentially we could go for another bond, but aside from that, this bond would be paid off in 2053. Any questions on this one? I know Nate's much better at explaining this, and I'll try to answer any questions I can. But he's
Basically a mortgage.
What's that? Sorry.
I said, I think it's basically a mortgage. We're taking out a mortgage from the
Kind of.
state and then we kind of pay it back.
Yes, but that school loan revolving fund adds an additional piece of confusion to it. But yeah, so basically, we have agreed to 7.84 mils now, so I know a lot of people think, okay, if we vote no, then immediately our debt millage is gonna drop, and it's not, so.
All right, so what we did for the steering committee, we wanted to make sure we shared it with the school board and the community, is we looked at surrounding districts and how many had passed bonds since 2015. So we have listed there several school districts in the area that have passed bonds since 2015, and then we also showed right there in the middle where Williamston would be if you guys passed this bond proposal in August. So right there in the middle of the pack, nothing too extravagant. We did on the right side, you'll see a little spreadsheet. We thought it was important to illustrate the years when those bonds were passed, mainly just because of worth and dollar value. As an example, in 2018, you had $32.7 million in Hazlitt. 2018, $32.7 million will buy you a substantially more construction project than $30.5 million would today, just because of inflation and everything that way. So in terms of trying to paint an illustration of what surrounding districts have done, we just wanted to put that in a graphic so folks could see that. And you'll also see that 3 districts have had multiple bonds passed since 2015. And just to note, all of these districts did pass their bonds. These aren't districts that went out for one and lost. These all passed in their communities. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize you were running there. I saw Adam use this, so I thought I would. Thanks. So yes, we did, as mentioned earlier, we did have a community survey go out. We had 414 responses. In terms of demographics, which is one of the first questions we asked because we want to know who's taking the survey, you'll see we had a great response of folks identifying as community members. The largest demographic, which isn't a surprise, identified as parents and guardians. And then we had staff members, school of choice parents, which we want to know because there are about 30% of your district is school of choice. So we want to know if they're taking the survey. So again, we can kind of identify their priorities as well. And then we did have 26 students, which I think is fantastic, that participated in the survey as well. Demographics are important when we do these surveys, just so again, we know who is taking the survey, especially because the biggest way that we got results back was from the district. That's how the survey was pushed by the district, so it's very school-centric, which is why we want to make sure we're identifying which groups are taking this survey. So a couple of the questions, again, demographic-wise. About 73% of those that took the survey either have children or grandchildren attending Williamston Community Schools, and then about 78.3% live within the school district. So roughly 22% are school of choice individuals who took this survey.
So this is me again. So we started off, and you've seen this list previously, with an initial list of what we thought might be the most substantial areas to address through the potential bond increase. There's, as you might not be surprised, almost an unlimited amount of need, but we're also very cognizant of the commitment of the community to the district, the tax rates that already exist within the community, and so I know the board has always maintained a commitment to not ask for a tax rate increase, and so we feel confident that if we prioritize the funding we would get through this, and we're effective and efficient with the utilization of those funds, we can get a lot of these significant facility and safety needs addressed through a zero mill bond proposal. This list was a starting point. It was useful to propose this to the community as a means of validating, getting feedback on some potential areas for improvement. But it's constantly evolving, and as has been alluded to already, we have the facility assessment that's taken place, the data from that, the community survey results. We have the steering committee through their own communications and networks, their own personal priorities, and of course their assessment of those data points will be instrumental in kind of crafting this and prioritizing this, in addition to other areas of need that have been raised since the survey was sent out. So this is not all inclusive, this is not the final list, and there's items that have been brought up that are not mentioned here, and some items here that folks have widely supported, and other areas where folks have had some questions. And so that's really the job of that steering committee, to coalesce around what are the priorities, and then bring those to the board on March the 4th for informational purposes, and also to help you decide if you're going to support the bond proposal moving forward to Treasury. So that is a summary of this slide. I'll turn it back over to Brett.
And so what we did with this list, we did post this as part of the survey, and when we asked the question with what that list was, will you support a bond vote that does not increase the current tax rate and generates approximately $38.5 million to be invested in Williamston Community Schools? About 85.5% said yes. I want to be clear that if the election were held today, I don't think it would pass that way with 85%, but this is a good snapshot of the priorities that have been already kind of identified. It seems to be very supportive of the community. So I just want to be clear that I don't think that it would end up passing this high, which would be phenomenal if it did, but again, it's a very school-centric survey, so just keep that in mind, but I do think it's a very good indicator that the priorities are aligning with what the community sees as the needs are.
All right, well, that concludes the presentation, an overview of the timeline and the work that's been done so far. I'll open it up to questions from the board.
We sit on the committee, so we've had opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question about the Department of Treasury meeting. Is that a meeting where you go and say, this is what we want to do with this money, and you say yes? Or is this a meeting where you go and say, this is how much you're going to get? Or like what?
Your first
is what
thought.
we have.
Here's what we are prioritized. There's a formal form that you apply for that, and it shows your request. There's other information for your district's population and growth statistics and certain other things that are a part of that, but it's a formal request for those funds.
We didn't
And
mention
for
it
the
in
election
timeline,
to include
but
that.
that's already been done as well, as far as the demographics, enrollment trends. That piece was done previously as well.
The meeting with the Treasury Department's already been?
No, not the
No,
Treasury
you just
Department.
collect the data.
Collect.
Yeah.
So could they say, no, you can't, like, redo your drop-off and pickup area? Or would they say, yeah, that looks like it's gonna
They're
cost
mainly
you more?
looking for the accuracy of the form and the following of the process. It's really the voters that would, comment on whether they're supportive of what those funds are going toward. But it's mainly procedural to make sure that you're asking for the right things the right way. There's certain things you can ask for, certain things you can't ask for, so.
Okay. Any other questions? No? I just have a comment. I in seeing that our teacher union person is in the office, in the audience, and I know this goes out to staff, not just him. I'm a little disappointed that we got less than 30% from our staff on our school survey.
I don't think it means that.
I mean, we have almost 3.
I don't think it means. Well, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it means that that's a percentage of that group. I think it means that's the percentage they were of the totality of the survey. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, that's of the total of the folks that took that survey, and it's very possible that, you know, a staff member identified themselves as a community member instead of a staff member.
But we still have, so it's saying, I mean, we have about 300 staff people and only like 113 to get. That, I mean, it's just a little disappointing. I would hope that everybody would take it, but. Any other questions? Thank you so much for keeping us apprised and up to date, and I know this is a lot of work. I know Adam and Sarah are putting a lot of time, and I also know that when Chris and Sarah became part of this meeting, and then was like, do you know we're meeting like once or twice a week? And I was like, well, I didn't. I knew it would be a lot, but, so I thank all of you who are putting in the time in the meeting and all of that.
I got a quick caveat on the staff member piece too, because we didn't talk about this in the presentation, but we've also gone and presented at all of the campuses, and I also did a separate presentation for the transportation department. So our staff, I mean, I'm sure, I know I missed a couple pockets here and there, but generally speaking, our staff has seen a similar presentation already, and they have, obviously being employees of the district, their own internal response mechanism and feedback loop. So we have covered that and had a lot of good questions and dialogue and some good follow-up pieces too with our team.
And maybe because of those meetings, that impacted the number of people that actually filled out the forms.
And I will say that the committee itself is a diverse group where we have some staff members, we have parents, we have school choice, I mean, we have board members, so,
Nice.
And we do meet once a week, so. I anticipate
Into March.
things will be moving quickly, because they already are.
Yeah, we have a short timeline, so I appreciate all the work that everyone's putting into this.
Yeah.
Moving us forward. I think we get it. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
you, appreciate it.
Michigan letter grade and ranking.
Is it okay if I use this, Chris? Oh, good. So tonight's presentation is on the Michigan letter grading and ranking system, but it's really on Williamston's. So I want to share that this is going to be pertinent to us. So tonight I'll be going over the following: the review of the ESSA accountability system, overall index values, growth index values, Williamston's scorecard results, middle and high school ranking, letter grade reports, ranking label scales, and our school's grade report. I know I've talked about this before, but I wanted to go over it again since I'm reporting on it. The accountability system that was designed by the federal government to meet the 2015 Everyday Succeeds Act, which we know as ESSA, created the school index system. This is one of two current systems in place where districts received a score that could be equally compared to other districts. This data can be obtained on the myschooldata.org. For the overall index value, the largest percentages, student proficiency and growth indexes, they are based on the MSTEP, the PSAT, and SAT data. The components were weighed to combine results into a 0 to 100-point index for each school. If you're missing a component, such as graduation rate for schools that are not high school, they'll have their weights redistributed proportionately among the remaining components for those at the school. For your growth index values, it's an adequate growth is a metric describing the percent of students on a path to becoming proficient or maintaining proficiency within a specific time frame. So Michigan's growth score measure is the student growth percentile, which is SGP, and that describes a student learning over time compared to other students with similar prior achievement scores. SGPs range from 1 to 99, and they indicate what percent of similar students, what they had, if they had growth. The average SGP is 50. So Williamston scorecard results are all in 90% in overall index for all of our schools, which is a celebration. The proficiency index aggregates, this is the components of them. It's from math and ELA content areas of the PSAT 8-9, the SAT, MSTEP, and My Access state assessments in grades 3 through 8 and 11 through 12. The school quality student success, this is for 11th and 12th grade. It is comprised of on-track attendance, not chronically absent, 11th to 12th grade advanced coursework, AP, IB, dual enrollment, CT program completers, and a post-secondary enrollment. Schools that are without 11th and 12th, so everything for elementary and middle. It includes on-track attendance, which is not chronically absent, access to arts and physical education, and access to librarian media specialists. So that's how the scores are compiled. And due to the many different elementary configurations in our county, I didn't rank Explorer, which is our 3-5 building, because most elementaries are of a different configuration. But Williamston Middle School ranked #1, big celebration, for the entire county in their overall index score. And as shown, Hazlet, Mason, Okemos, and Dansville each were among the top 5 in the county. For high school, big celebration again. Williamston High School ranked #1 for the entire county in the overall index score. We were followed by Leslie, Mason, Okemos, and Hazlet High Schools, who each were among the top 5. So what is Michigan's grade report? Michigan Department of Ed holds the second ranking system on school performance. The following are the 8 areas ranked in their grade report: proficiency, growth, graduation, English learner progress, performance among peers, student subgroup performance, attendance, and assessment participation. This is going to be the last year that Michigan is going to have a grade report, as it was repealed at the end of 2023. So here's our celebration. Explorer's combined ELA and math proficiency score was an A rating. Explorer's combined growth score was also an A rating. Here we look at student subgroup participation and assessment participation, and they were both labeled significantly above as compared to the state average. Attendance was above state average, while performance among peers were just slightly below the state average. For the middle school, an A rating was given to Williamston Middle School in the areas of proficiency and growth. In 2 of the 4 areas as shown, the middle school was significantly above average. In the area of attendance, they were in the average range, and the middle school received a B rating among their peer performance.
Do you want me to ask a question now, or do you
Sure,
want to wait?
you can.
What exactly is performance among peers? Is
So-
that just
I actually went online, and I didn't put it in here because you can go on to the My School data and get it, but there are many different high schools, or if it's middle school, that they rank us against. And when you look at it, they're from all different counties. It's not just from here. So they take into consideration different subcategories, and they rank us among that. That's how they do it. I don't know what the formula, I can find out. It's in,
No, I'm
yeah.
just wondering when it says.
Yeah. So it's
ranking us against
within
our-
Michigan.
Within Michigan.
Yes,
Schools like.
yes, but different.
But,
Yeah, different. So Williamston High School was graded in all 8 areas. On this slide, it shows the first 4 areas to be graded. Williamston's A in proficiency, growth, and graduation status, and we did not have enough English language learners. On these 4 performance indicators, William received the highest values possible in performance among peers, student subgroup, and assessment participation. For attendance, we received an average score with 87.46% of our students attending 90% or more of our school's days. So that's how they come up with that. If you're interested, these are the additional websites that provide the information on each system, and they're hard to read sometimes, so I have no problem since I'm used to going into them. If you have a specific interest in something, I'll be happy to share it with you. And do you have any other questions?
So when we look at the high school, thinking about what Nancy is, when she thinks about, oh, that's only average for attendance for the high school, that still takes into account our Wilson Talent Center students, or no?
Yes, because they are our
They're
students,
okay.
correct. Mhm.
Wow, 87 is only average.
Yeah, 90 is considered above average, so we were right
Really
there.
close, yeah.
Yep, 90% is the cutoff for the days that we're in school, to have 90%, yeah. And I don't know how they figured that out. How they come up with 90 compared to 100 or 85 or. Any other questions at all?
Lots of successes, lots of celebrations.
We really
Very
had a
exciting
lot
stuff.
of celebrations.
Yeah.
We did a great job. And Explorer really went up too, so that's a celebration in itself. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're
That
so
is
welcome.
Amazing information. All right, next, superintendent's report. I'm sorry, did anybody have, I didn't ask if anybody else had any questions for Dr. Cook. Oh. Were you guys done?
I asked.
You did, okay. Sorry. Okay.
We have the committee report first. Or no, you're right, never mind.
No, you.
Can't follow the list. All right, superintendent's report on upcoming items on the 4th of March. There's going to be the presentation from the steering committee, and then I'll initiate the bond treasury application, as was noted earlier. On the 18th of March, don't have an update yet for you, but I'm sure items will pile up before that point. One of the things I wanted to cover in the report today was 23G grant funding and what this is. This is part of what's called the My Kids Back on Track grant initiative. For us, and we did go through the quite tedious application process to receive this. I think as we've mentioned before, when the state, when you might read a press clipping or something that the state has provided categorical funding for a particular area, they don't just give you the money. It is an extensive process, often created while the plane's in the air, that you have to adapt to try to receive the categorical funding that they've appropriated. So while not every district applied for this, we did, and I commend Sarah and Michelle for sticking with this because it kind of changed a few times while we were moving through the process. So for us, that'll bring in $183,352 that can be utilized to support expanded or extended learning opportunities for students classified as needing additional support or in some cases at risk.
I'm sorry, can you state how much that is again?
$183,352.
I thought it was
We have posted the entire plan on the transparency page, the little icon that pops up on the website on the upper right-hand corner, and it's under the My Kids Back on Track plan, so you can go and actually read the entire draft proposal. This is still pending, I think, final approval by the state, but we've been given, I guess, informal approval that it's, or informal word that it's good to go. What this will do immediately is it will continue the after-school intervention program, which we have seen to be very successful at the elementary school without any break in being able to provide that service to students. The ESSER 3 11T funds, as you'll probably hear about later, have expired just around or just prior to winter break. So this will continue to move that initiative forward, but furthermore, it'll allow an opportunity to expand that intervention to potentially before school opportunities at the other buildings, and even potentially taking advantage of having more staff present to support students at the high school on Saturdays, which is something the high school administration's talked about for a while, is being interested in. One of the drawbacks to ESSER 311T, it worked well for elementary students and somewhat well for middle school students, but you were restricted to doing interventions after school. And And as we know, high school students in practice reversals or jobs after school, that can be difficult for them to get to. So we're hoping by having more general allowances in terms of how the funds are used to provide that intervention, we'll be able to bring some more high school students into that support area. So that's kind of a quick overview of that, just so you know. So we'll be continuing to work the details with the administration in terms of setting up the systems. We've already worked with the Williamston Education Association. I think you've seen the draft LOA that pretty much mirrors what we had with ESSER 311T, but just expanding the times that this can be offered. They've been strong proponents of this throughout. So that's continuing forward with this new grant opportunity.
It'll also, just that 183,000 should get us through the rest of this year, and I would expect almost all, if not all, of next year for the after-school program.
Which is when we have to have it spent by, if I understand.
Correct, yeah.
So is it a renewal grant? Is this like a one-time and done grant thing, or can we apply?
As far as we know, one time and done, just like all the
others. I originally thought he said 803,000.
Oh, that would have been nice. No way we would have spent that in a year.
What? Oh, I would find a way to spend that, but I was like, I didn't hear that right. What? Okay, so one and done, but nice.
It's a nice continuation of a program we've had in place for the last year, roughly last year with the ESSER 311T system, so it'll be good. And we've seen, it's really hard to quantify it because you don't know what would have happened if you didn't have the intervention, so it's hard to have a control group, but to the best we could, when we went through our fall day-to-day results, we really were able to see students enroll, especially at the elementary school, move as a result of being in that program. And so we're hoping that continues to drive the scores forward and maximize the academic outcomes of those students, and keeping the momentum like you just saw in the scorecard report. So we're optimistic about this.
Are we able to service all of the students that meet the requirements for this, or is it kind of like we have 20 students but we can only take 5?
So this takes some of the demographic restrictions out of play that were in place with ESSER 311T, and it really allows us to kind of broaden the support structure for students. They still need to, and we can use our MTSS system to justify this, but there still need to be demonstrating a need for intervention. So obviously to maximize the effectiveness, we'll be working with those students that could benefit most from support. But a lot of the demographic requirements that we had previously are no longer.
Nice. Thank you both for working on that and sticking to that. Any other questions? Okay. Committee reports. Chris.
We had a meeting on January 30th and went through our amended budget. We'll be hearing more about. We also had good news about our class investment. That continues to bring in good dividends from the investment that has been put in, and actually Ms. Tynan did put a little bit more into it to continue to bring additional revenue into the district off that income, which is great. We had an update on ESSER funding as well, just showing how we're spending that, and taking a look a little bit deeper on that. We did ask some questions on that regarding kind of what happens afterwards, which we've kind of been alluding to for a while, that we have a number of positions that are tied to that funding and other funding that will not be here within the next year or two. So we do have to start thinking about that in a deeper level of what that's going to look like. And we do have our sinking fund, but we will have to have some conversations about that. We also had an update on sinking fund, where we're at with that. We're in good shape, staying on track with spending that and working on issues within the district that need to be dealt with. We also had talked about is it Fifely Foundation donation. This has been a long time gift that has been given to the district to allow for students to take advantage, or allow students from Germany to come here and allow students from here to go to Germany, and supporting that program. And this is actually going to be being moved from an external fund to the money being brought into the district, where it will come in as a one-time gift, and then that money will continue to be used for this same project, but it will be managed by the district. So that's moving forward as well. And we talked about the high school office furniture. There will be, you'll be seeing something here where we're going to be talking about this, that there is some money that we're looking to expend to replace some quite old office furniture, and we'll be putting forward that in 2 phases to be able to take care of that and bring that up to current trends. And then finally, when we'll be hearing about this is Kids Corner. There was some information in your packet about this in regards to the tuition, and we'll be hearing more about that as well today. That's it.
Any questions of Chris? All right, thank you. Discussion items, we can jump right in with our beloved Mrs. Olson.
Well, I have to just start off by saying I love to come back in June and talk about my educational update, where I get to do all the celebrations of student achievement, or even talk about our celebrations of our district, but today I'm here to talk about budget and tuition. Money. So thank you again for the opportunity to come and talk with you a little bit. So Kids Corner does operate from revenue, or our revenue comes from tuition. So that is how our operating budget is done. And we just know over the past several years there have been significant changes to our society and our economy that negatively impact our program. I'm in constant communication with our finance director. Sarah and I have lots of meetings of where we can, do some cost saving initiatives, and where we can, where are we spending our money on, and if there's any way that we can tighten our budget. But we are as tight as we possibly can be right now. So we do try and do things like save money on materials and save money on snacks and other things, but we still have to evaluate our income, the revenue that's coming into our program. So you do hear each and every day about the child care crisis, both locally and nationally, and it is real. We are, I'm living it every single day of trying to balance the impact on families, the fiscal responsibility to the district, and to educate children within our program and provide the best quality care, and to still balance our staff and give them a living wage. So the crisis is real. We look over time and we see, that school funding, I'm not an expert on school funding, so I'm not even going to show you the trends, but there has been some increase in the per pupil funding for K-12. Our funding is based on what parents pay, so those outside sources aren't necessarily there for us. Preschool still needs those same needs that K-12 needs, and our after-school kiddos still need those same things as well. So I firmly believe in that we're not going to sacrifice the quality of our programming because of a budget issue. So, okay. I get a little too happy with the clicker over here. So what I did is I tried to show kind of the trend of tuition rate changes over the past decade. And so I looked back in our notes, and there was a significant increase in 2018-19. Now this was prior to my time, so I can just share the data. I can't share the thought process or what contributed to this decision, but that was a huge jump, that 13% increase in 2018, followed by several years of zero increase. What you also see is those were entering into some of our COVID years. During our COVID years, we had some supplemental income versus the stabilization grants that allowed us to One couple grants provided some refunds to families during that time. There's a stipulation in there, especially the first couple rounds, on what kind of refunds were given to families who were enrolled during those early COVID years. There were other stipulations of those funds to do staff bonuses, and there was the time we also did some supplementing of additional bonuses for staff. So we did not increase those rates during that time, and we used those stabilization funds. As we exited the COVID years, we did have to start, I use that word stabilizing our budget a lot because that's what the grants were intended to do. We still had to increase and get increased revenue because of the amount of expenses that were happening. So we tried to do a step increase. So in 2023, we did a 3.5%. Families were still really, really struggling during that time, and so we used those extra stabilization grant funds to offset our expenditures. In 2023-24, we did have to go to that higher one of 7%. What we found out in 23-24 is that our budget is now balanced. We're pretty stable, but there's no extra room to support our staff and to provide any increases for this year. So that's where this extra tuition increase is developed to support our staff and invest in our staff. So the next 3 slides are going to be just that market analysis of our preschool, before and after school, and our summer camp programming. These were the 23-24 school year rates, September through May. You'll see that on all of these charts, Williamston's going to be right in the middle, maybe a little on the higher end on some, maybe a little on lower end on some. You'll see that there are lots of gaps in here. There are so many different nuances with programming across the board, so this is just a general awareness for discussion point. So there is our school age programming. And again, every single program out there is still in their market analysis phase, and so we don't know what they're going to do. Very, very few things have distributed their summer camp programming, so that's why this is really pretty short. So this is coming forth is a 5% increase being proposed for the 24-25 school year. As I mentioned earlier, this increase is really going to be completely translated into staff increases across the board. We looked at this. What I tried to put in bold were the 2 things that were going to be the most significant change for a family. So on the right-hand side, or actually let's do the left-hand side first, that Little Hornet 4 5 full-day program change per year of $391, if I'm seeing that correctly. That is for a child who's enrolled in our program 5 full days. The right side of it is going to be the Kids Corner change for family, and that is based on a kiddo who comes every morning and every afternoon, 180 days for the year. So that would be the maximum change in cost for that. Some things to note on these slides when you look at prices, you're like, they do seem high, and nobody wants to do that out-of-pocket expense. I do want to put some things into perspective. When we look at, like, say, the Little Hornet 4 full-day classroom, that equates to our Great Start Readiness program. And so MDE tells me that the cost to educate a 4-year-old child is $9,608 a year. That's the funds that I get from MDE. We're charging families about $3,300 less than that for our tuition kiddos. A family cannot afford what MDE says is quality education, okay? But we are still educating all of our children to meet those standards. So our tuition, there's a very big disparity between what MDE says is appropriate amounts to educate 4-year-olds and what our tuition is able to charge. Okay. So we do understand that raising rates does impact our families with multiple children at it puts them at a disadvantage. So we know that we do have to increase rates, but we do also want to support our families.
In 2021, we introduced that sibling discount rate where it was 10% off for the second sibling in the family. That was very, very well received from our families. Right now, our enrollment is about 60% of our Kids Corner enrollment is families with multiple children. Little Hornets, right now, we don't have any siblings in our Little Hornet program, but the discount still would apply to those families as well. So what we're proposing is, though, we're going to expand on our sibling discount. We're already one of the higher rates around the community, and so now we're even going to be higher in that. So the first child would be at the regular tuition rate. The second child the increased rate would be 12.5% discount, and then any additional children would be at a 15% increase. So we know that we're expending rates, but we're also trying to give back to families at the same time.
Can I ask?
Absolutely.
Are there any funds available for low-income families?
Yes, there are. So it is the Child Development and Care. And so we do try and give those resources to any family who may be having difficulty paying their bill, or who may be part of the Great Start program, who does childcare before or after school. We provide that resource. The family then needs to apply for it through the state of Michigan. We can't do that for the family, but we really try our best to give them the opportunity to do those resources. And we do accept those payments. And so we do have a couple families who are benefiting from that program.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to add something. Do you mind?
Yes, please do.
So when Rebecca and I were discussing her rate, so we're estimating if you increase it 5%, but allow that 2.5% and an additional 5% discount to the multiple children families, we would average about 3%. 3% is going to get Rebecca approximately $14,000, just over $14,000. So if you imagine that $14,000 spread across your 25 employees, you know, it's really slim increases. I know it does impact our families, but it does impact our staff as well to have these rates the way they are.
I had a question, but now I forgot.
I'm so sorry.
No.
That's okay. I always write it down and then I didn't. I have to think. You asked about, so if we have a student that comes in as a tuition student, they fill out the paperwork, and you think that they might qualify as a great parent, Great Start student, will you have that conversation with them? Or how, do they get both paperwork, or how?
Prior to, as part of our enrollment process, we encourage every single family, our preschool families, because that's all that Great Start would apply to complete that common application through the Ingham Intermediate School District. Then, if they complete that application, then the ISD already screens them and tells me whether they're GSRP eligible or not. I then communicate that back to them. During our registration process, if I see that a family has not completed that application, I will reach back out to them and say, please do this, we want to get it. You know, especially as, you know, you hear a lot and this is a rabbit hole that we're going down, but universal preschool or pre-K for all, you know, that has been on the forefront of every governor's speech right now, and fingers crossed, I really want them to do that. So we are trying to set ourselves up, and when we do that, then more of our tuition can be coming from the state and not from parents' pockets. So that is something that's always on our mindset. I'd love to talk to anybody about universal preschool all day.
This past year, was there a waiting list? Did everybody get in that wanted to get in?
No, everybody did not get in that wanted to get in. Yes, we have a waiting list. We have a significant waiting list for any of our 4 or 5 day programs, and we constantly have a waiting list for our Kids Corner before and after school. So we're always evaluating our spaces and seeing what we can do, but we are guided by what's now called MyLeap. It used to be, you know, Laura, but MyLeap regulates the group size that we can have. It regulates how many kiddos we can have in a classroom. There's a huge amount of umbrella policies and nuances that guide our enrollment.
Are there alternative programs for those parents on the wait list? Is there anything that their child could get involved in terms of preschool?
You know, so I tend not to recommend another program. I will share where there are resources. So the Great Start the Great Start Collaborative has a website, and so if families can't get into me, I will give them those resources. I tend not to say, go to this community resource or this private childcare center, simply because I haven't been to any of them to give my recommendation to people. But I will say, try this number, and here's another resource for you. But
It is a challenge.
it is a challenge, yes.
I feel like childcare, good quality preschool has always been a challenge, and then COVID happened and so many of them closed, and it's
Yes.
even more of a challenge.
So when you look at the number of kindergartens coming to school, are you able to have as many as, say, our kindergarten enrollment would be in your preschool, or not as many?
At our current, and this is kind of a rabbit hole that I love to talk a little bit more, but our current classroom spaces within the building does not allow for the, you look at 6 kindergarten classrooms and 2 young fives classrooms, so that's 8 classrooms. I currently have space for, 4 classrooms, and my class sizes have to be smaller,
So ideally, it would be really nice if you could take the entire student body that would be going into kindergarten and already have them enrolled in a quality preschool program.
There's a lot of discussion, because we have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and so that is a big enrollment, and I'd love to answer any questions about people's enrollment. I just don't want to
So with the space, if this bond passes, is that possible that there could be more space there?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the kind of secondary objectives, is when you're able to build functional, large classrooms to support upper elementary students, that'll hopefully clear some potential room for an expansion of childcare preschool.
So I think there's a whole, and I can say this, I don't want to speak for Rebecca, but I worked with Rebecca as a teacher. I also know her standards. I don't know if that sounds rude, and that I don't mean to, but I encourage any of you to reach out to Rebecca and ask for a tour. Our Little Hornets program is a very high quality preschool program, and our students, I mean, there's interventions, there's curriculums, they excel. So it's also not just about having space to throw 18 kids in a classroom and try to get an adult. It's filling a classroom and then finding that staff. And that's just as hard to find quality staff
I was just gonna say.
that are gonna come for, like, we don't.
Yeah, we require the staff to have a 4-year degree, where other programs is just have an associate's or a certificate.
Or a
And
class.
that's
Or a
not
class.
to,
2 or 3
be
classes.
mean to those programs, but our standards are that we have a 4-year degree in early childhood or background.
That's great.
So, I mean, but we're hurting for teachers and childhood programs are hurting also. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, when you think about building quality education K-12, it starts before kindergarten.
Absolutely.
So whatever we can provide is just gonna make our program stronger on the other end.
Yep, so we are, to go, just to kind of close that issue, is that, I am constantly working with the ISD to, over the last several years, we've increased the amount of GSRP slots that are available, and we continue to fill them to capacity and award those grants. And so I'm constantly looking to get more of those slots from the ISD to provide back to the preschool and to the families, so. Any other kind of questions just on that tuition rate proposal? I don't want to take up too much of your time and
I
go
do
on a
have one
tangent.
other question.
Yes.
Does your staff, do you have, like, most of our school staff have steps? So year 1 you get this, year 2 you get this, year 3 you get this?
So,
Are you eligible for
so
that?
Sarah and I had done a lot of discussion about that. Part of this proposal was intending to do a much greater increase and then to provide those step systems. It was not, one didn't equal the other. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on it?
So hers is a little tricky because we don't her revenues aren't really determined until just before the program, so we can't really promise a certain percentage of ways out. But what we did do is we're trying to get there. What we started with was, is it CDA? I don't know all their certifications,
Yes.
but we've lumped them into certain categories for now, and then those categories will get broken out. So say they get a license or, sorry, again, I don't
Yeah.
know the correct terms for
Right.
your
I
staff, but
got you.
So
they
there,
get
yeah,
a
there are
different level
different,
that way. Yeah.
different organizations within the district who have like a 3-year plan for here's your steps for the next 3 years. We have not been able to do that because we're trying to still stabilize that budget. And so this one will give a universal increase for everybody. That doesn't even allow for if somebody was to get a degree to come up to the next level. I encourage my staff to go back to school. We got a lot in school. We have a lot taking courses in. And so we've got different categories of starting wage, and then they'll increase from there. But at this time, we do not have a step system that says in this year, in 24, 25, you're going to get this increase, 25, 26. We haven't been able to solidify and stabilize our budget enough to do that.
Right. And it's tough too because we switched software systems right before COVID, so all the information I have is COVID numbers, and it's hard to base a schedule off of information that was so fluid through
So
the years.
to keep the high quality staff, are you thinking kind of moving forward that we would have some type of an increase, whether it's 5%, maybe 3%, somewhere like that every year to support?
My intent or my hopes is that we will continue to gain more money from the state with that GSRP funding. And if we can gain more money for the state and get more children into free preschool enrollment, like we said, that amount of revenue is significantly more than our tuition kiddos. And so if we can shift more over, there's a different cost allocation ratio that we have to use throughout our entire budget based on the amount of grant funding and tuition funding that we have, based on the amount of school age. And so it's a really complex formula. And so if we can shift it more towards using state funds, we can draw less from tuition funds. So that is kind of our long-term hopes and goals, and we just need legislature to help us out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, preschool is no different than other staff members that we have. We want to keep that high quality, but we also want to recruit high quality teachers as well. So just thinking about what that may look like.
So I am always available if you need to follow up with any questions. I'd be happy to have additional conversations. Pending board approval, these rates would go into effect out for marketing once approved in March so that we can start the enrollment process and be in effect for the summer and then the school year programming.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Budget amendment.
Yeah, some more budget stuff. Okay, so today I am presenting our 22-23 amended budget. You'll see that first column is the amended amounts compared against our original, and on the right is the adjustment. We have just under $300,000 increase in revenues, a little over $200,000 increase in expenditures for a net adjustment of $60,000. You'll also see I increased our contingency amount by $200,000. What that contingency is basically I make an expense line item and show that we're going to spend these funds so that when we send these numbers to the state, they think we're only going to be contributing $725,000 to fund balance, and so we don't get a ding on our audit. But really, I think we will be contributing about that $1,025,000 there. So the changes in our revenues, and I cannot read that, so I'm going to look at my document. So as you know, our original budget was always just an estimate. So now that we have our solidified numbers, our per pupil allocation has increased about $385,000. Our special education, I mentioned this in the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. We're having a decrease there of $360,000. I need to get a better understanding of what that is. I know we have claimed quite a few of the positions under federal funding, so that is having an impact. but they're also claiming we're getting 100% funding from special ed now. So I do have a call scheduled with the ISD to get that sorted and better understand what's going on there. MIPSR's rate subsidy, that decreased $737,000. If you remember last year, we had that huge influx of MIPSR's funds. You'll see that's just going right out. It's a wash with our salary expenses on the next slide. District transportation costs, so this was a new line item. They're basically reimbursing us for last year's transportation expenses in the amount of $208,000. You'll see I have a matching expense on the next slide as well for that. 31A at-risk allocation, that increased to $51,000 this year. We also received additional 31AA mental health and safety and security funding. That total increase was more like $300,000, but we're trying to push about $200,000 of that to next year to help with the losing of a lot of that one-time funding to cover some salaries next year, as well as Serenity and Gemini, our dog detection team. And then GSRP had an increase of about $40,000 from prior year as well. Interest revenue from Michigan Class Investment, Chris mentioned this. To date, we have earned, today it was $24,800 on that. And that is since November 10th when I made the initial transfer of $1.5 million. I now have $2 million over there, so I expect this to grow even more than that, $50,000, but I'm just being conservative here. Kids Corner tuition from our original estimate, I think they'll have that increase of $32,000. I don't believe we had the rates approved prior to my original budget presentation. ESSER ARP increase of $51,000. You'll see that nets with an expense as well. This was just how those expenses fell along the June 30th timeline this year. Health Resource Advocate, we have 2 FTE positions through the Health Resource Advocate. We weren't sure if we were going to get those at the start of the year, but we do have those positions confirmed. Williamston Schools Foundation grant reimbursement, we are expecting $82,000 there, and that is from 2020 to 2023. A failure on my part to invoice those expenses properly, so we're getting that sorted out now. Title I funding, which we've experienced decreases annually, we actually have an increase this year of $51,000 there. And then as Adam mentioned, the 23G Back on Track, that's our after school program. I expect us to use $58,000 of the $183 this year, and you'll see a matching expense for that as well. So here are changes in expenses. Again, the MIPSRs, that's just a wash with the income. Retiree subs, we've had a lot of staff out this year, unfortunately, due to some health issues. So we have 2 retiree subs that are in daily at our elementary schools to help with that. WEA member bonuses for June 2024, we did confirm those. That's estimated for 111 or 12 teachers with retirement and FICA included there. ESSER ARP, again, that matches the revenue. That was just the ESSER expenses toggling that June 30 timeline. 23G Back on Track expenses, that's the $58,000 there. This capital outlay line item of $208, that's that transportation reimbursement. We are doing some office updates as well as numerous other items across the district really to utilize those funds since they were unexpected and we have a lot of needs. 31AA safety and security upgrades, we are doing some security of $60,000 this year. Cybersecurity, that was the MDR, and I keep on forgetting the other abbreviation that James presented to you guys. That's $55,000 annually. Our legal expenses increased this year about $30,000. That's with the bond and some other student issues and things of that sort. And then other miscellaneous increases and decreases across the board of $381,000. This here is fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures. I'm also going to show it to you in a percentage of revenues. I know the board goal was based on revenues. However, across the state, and I would imagine in other states, we base it on expenditures. So that's what we're going to start focusing on now and presenting to you. The reason we do this is because we have more control over our expenditures. So for example, and as I explained in the finance meeting, we always have those title positions in our school, but we have absolutely no control over how much title funding we're going to get to cover those. So we know we have the expense always, we don't know if we have the revenue. So that's why we base this on expenses. You'll see that we're expecting to contribute just over $1 million to fund balance at the close of 2024, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $6.7 million or 26% of expenditures. you'll see here in comparison to revenues, that's gonna put us at 25.3% of revenues. And as you know, we keep dumping these funds into our fund balance to help get us through these losing all these COVID funds. I did discuss with Adam, really since we have about $1 million in salaries that are not covered and we are currently contributing $1 million to fund balance, they really should be pretty close to netting out in the end. Of course, that can fluctuate with our title at risk, which has grown significantly the last few years, and other state categoricals or any other things that come up. But I don't think it's gonna be as dire as we had expected. And any questions?
I have a question, I just don't know how to ask it. So when you're saying, you know, we have $1 million of salary sitting out there that's been kind of funded through the COVID money.
Mm-hmm.
We saved $1 million, so yes, it'll be a wash, but for how many years is that gonna be a wash?
That's where it's gonna get tricky, and you know, we always had the increases in our salaries. We don't know if the state
It's gonna
per pupil allocation is gonna match that. It's gonna be a kind of a guessing game for a bit. My plan is to have a final budget amendment and next year's original ready for you much sooner than we normally do, so that we can look at that and see where we're at and make any decisions if we need to.
Me too. So I think that's important. Chris kind of alluded to that. And we've been, I mean, this isn't a surprise. We've been talking about this since COVID. You know, we got all this money. It was like, spend it or you lose it. So we're gonna spend it. And we hired staff that was desperately needed and put it in places that was desperately needed and received some benefit of that. But now we're coming to the end of that. So I love looking at this saying, you have 26%, and I think that's really a misnomer also for our community. Like, look at all the money you have, you don't need this or that, and it's gonna be, those are gonna be, I mean, we're gonna have to start having those conversations with community members or whoever, because it really is like,
Yeah,
you
and
said, and we just don't know.
in comparison to other districts, we are just above average. It's not like we're swimming in funds in comparison to everyone else. We're just keeping up,
Right.
so.
I think for some of us who were sitting here way back when we had 1% in our savings account, like, you know,
Yeah.
not even $175,000, like, we had a board and some superintendents in the past who were amazing individuals, and they were really comfortable living in that, like, I don't know the saying, is it pay Paul to pay Peter, like what?
Rob Peter to pay Paul?
Yeah. They were okay living in that, like, dire
Yeah.
thing, and then we started having, you know, some mistakes happen and some extra things come up, and we just got lower, and, I mean, if we had a teacher go out sick and use the sick bank, we would not have been able to make payroll. And that was like, I think Adam's first year here, that was pretty scary, and we were like, we can't live in this area anymore. So we just kind of dug our way out of a hole, and it's more comfortable, but like, we're not swimming in it. But I'm hoping, I mean, everybody just cross your fingers, pray to whoever you pray to, that we keep those increases keep coming, and we can keep, like, the staff that we have. Otherwise, we're gonna have to start making some tough decisions. We will be making tough decisions. And
Yeah.
when you're talking about a person, that's pretty hard. So thank you.
Yeah,
Very
anything
much.
else?
All right, the memorial fund.
What do you think this?
Sure.
So the Jeffrey David Fifely Memorial Fund, established by his parents who were Williamston graduates. David was a graduate of high school out of state, but attended MIT and had a very successful, promising career. He was tragically killed in a vehicle accident. The entire story is on the website under our Study Abroad tab off the district homepage. The fund has been used in his honor for many years, his memory. support our study abroad program, which includes both the German exchange that came back this year for the first time since COVID, and also the opportunity for students to, our students to study abroad in different locations around the world, and has been significant in subsidizing the cost to Williamston families and students who want to participate in that. For, I think, since the foundation began, that has flowed through the Williamston Schools Foundation, which has created a lot of inefficiencies within the system of the funds flowing from the Memorial Fund to the Schools Foundation, and then us invoicing them, trying to account for the amount of funds that are needed to support the program each year. So this has been a long time in coming to try to streamline that system, and David Fifley has been agreeable and is actually interested in moving that foundation from his oversight to the school to directly facilitate those funds in the same manner as has been done previously, but a much more efficient process, and kind of removes the school's foundation of having to serve as a pass-through account for that. As you can see in the draft resolution, this anticipates to be not less than $965,000. It would be set up in a trust fund that would be specifically used to support study abroad. The donation agreement outlines all that, but because of the significance of the fund, the reason it was started, and to make sure that in 10 years, 20 years, we don't forget, or who's ever in these seats doesn't forget why those funds are in place and whose honor they are being used to remember. We've also proposed a board resolution, assuming the board is agreeable to this transfer, that will help establish that the funds are to only be used to support the study abroad program. Last piece I guess I'll mention, I'm sure I'm missing something. We can invest this in a separate My Class account, which means that those proceeds will continue to generate interest, and that'll help perpetuate them being in place to support students hopefully many years, decades from now in Williamston. So, did I miss anything, Rox, there?
We would just put this into our Michigan Class Investment Fund. It would have a separate account from our $2 million we have in there, and we would just let it sit and collect interest until we charge the expenses to it each year. So, but no, I think you got it all.
And how much is that roughly each year expense taken out?
I think when we looked, it was about 40,000. So we charged Greenheart invoices, which I think is like 10,000 per student. For example, last year I think we must have had two, because I had two $10,000 invoices, and then we charge, I think it was 5%, or sorry, 0.2 FTE of Megan O'Rourke's salary. So that increases a little bit each year with her salary increase, but we that's supposed to be her portion for covering the program.
Is that for just the German, for our students to go to Germany? Is that if we had a student want to go study abroad in Australia for a semester?
That I don't know.
Covers both.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you can see actually on the bottom of the webpage, it kind of articulates both programs. You have the German exchange, and then you also have your more independent study abroad. We have students every year participate in different places around the world.
Nice.
So I have a question about this fund. It said it specifically did not give money to students, so how does,
Yeah,
so where
that's-
does it go? Is it help for a teacher to oversee this, or I'm just wondering specifically what the funds go to?
Well, Sarah can probably expound on that, but we cannot give the money to a student. That would be a scholarship, and that would be illegal. So we basically reimburse the agency, or subsidize the cost via the agency versus giving it to a student that coordinates it. So that's the green
So
card.
yeah, they invoice us and we pay Greenheart.
So that pays for like their flights over and back? and
It
everything?
must be. I can look more into that for you.
for sure.
Say that again, sorry.
I said it does cover the flights.
Yeah.
Well, it covers a piece. So like if I wanted to go study abroad to Australia, I don't know why that pops in my head. I could go through this agency and they would say, okay, to do this, it would cost you $50,000. And then they give up, like you as a family have to come up with a certain amount and then they come up with a certain amount.
Yeah, I can
Or
find
they'll
out.
say, like, here's what we do.
And I could say, like, for the German trip, because my daughter's going on it, right now, they're anticipating that the cost per family is going to be about $1,400. And that's a subsidized amount. So,
Oh, that's great. I don't know of other school districts that have such a benefit for students to study abroad. And I was wondering if it was just Germany, but it sounds like they could go anywhere then.
Our German exchange program is, like, we do, and like, it's that, where that whole group of German students come
Yeah.
here for a week or 2 weeks, and
About 2
then our
weeks.
students go there. So
Okay.
there's that piece of it, and then there's the piece that individual students can do, and they can go anywhere.
That's wonderful.
and totally because of David Pfeiffer.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty, my daughter was the first, class or group to go over to Germany. And I think, I mean, I'm not even telling you what it cost us to send her, because it was such a minimal amount, because they had not, like, it was new, it was brand new, people really didn't know what it was, and they had a really small number go. She was a freshman, I was like, sure, you go and apply to that. Like, you'll never get that. But like, kids are gonna, and she did, and I was like, but it was a great opportunity for her.
So I think just to summarize, if we're gonna do this, David Pfeiffer's putting a lot of faith in us, and in future boards, to continue to use the funds for their designated purpose. And so I just wanna make sure we are all clear, and I know this group would be, but, again, 10 years, 20 years from now, that folks are digging through the records and, I don't know, they need 2 school buses and they're looking for money and, oh, there's this fund, that we have the adequate documentation that these are reserved and only to be used for their intended purpose. I think
And
that's
he
important
intended
to
this for over a period of time, not just for 1 year, right?
This
It's
is,
to
right, so it's been
continue on and be
invested so
invested.
that the funds continue to extend out as long as possible.
That's great.
We'd like to continue to do that through investing it in the My Class account.
Nice.
And the finance committee is completely behind this, so, in this proposal.
Any other questions? Okay. If you have any questions, we'll move these things forward, but please make sure you get us there. Board goals. We met, here are the board goals typed up correctly. We do not have to officially vote on these, but we do have to kind of, what's the word I'm looking, adopt them. So this is kind of just an informational piece. If something doesn't look right on these, please let me know. Otherwise, these will be put into place as of tomorrow that we adopted these board goals. And I can get with you later and kind of talk through like how we got here and what they are.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Well, I read them over this afternoon and I thought, well, it just looks like you reworded the last goals, basically. But
Yeah.
isn't part of this for Adam's evaluation too, and for him to have some goals, for him to be challenged in his role to oversee and improve the entire district? Am I seeing it wrong, or?
No, so our Board of Education goals then kind of do like, well, yes, it funnels down. So then it's the school improvement goals, it's how we rate Adam, it's how Adam rates his thing, the administrators, how the administrators do teachers. So it kind of funnels them all down. So we have to have, we have to have one that talks about, writing math, language, writing, arithmetic. So kind of that first one is just saying used to say, I believe that we would provide individual experience, educational experience for all students and help them, get out of high school or something. So instead of just putting words to paper or just making them, if you like fluff, we wanted to kind of just whittle them down and get to the bare bones of what goals are. So yes, these are our overall things, like we always want to educate our students. We need to keep up, the fund balance goal started 8 or 9 years ago when we were at that low point. Like we set a goal, we met that goal, we set another goal. Now to say we want to keep it at a certain percentage didn't seem right. We just don't ever want to have to borrow from the state. So the amount money goal, the communication, we're always trying to strengthen that communication. When we, again, started this goal 8 or 9 years ago, our communication probably wasn't our strongest piece. So we had a committee, we started doing the podcast Chris did, doing all the emails, like the stuff that Adam is doing. So it's just continuing that.
I'm wondering why you
infrastructure
use
and
the
safety.
word sustain, because I feel that communication for all those groups is something that we need to strive to improve.
Well, so we went back and forth with improve, we went effectiveness, we went sustain, we went do, and the
Sorry, I
only
missed
thing
the
that.
whole
No,
workshop.
it's fine, I'd rather have you ask questions now.
Yeah,
And when we're saying sustain, really the only thing that we're not doing, we're sending out emails, like Adam sends out an updated email to staff, to administrators, to community members. He knows the percentage of that are being open. Adam used to do these coffee times. He kind of stopped doing those because no one was showing up. He would do like a state of the district things. Again, people stopped showing up. So the only thing really that we haven't engaged in is a social media piece. And that is not Adam's strong suit. It's not my strong suit either, but if it is to engage in social media with our families, our community, the only person that knows 100% of what's going on would be Adam. So for Adam to do that, we have to take something else away from his job description, because that is really a big full-time job. So that is really one of the only things that we're still not doing. So being able to have him continue to communicate the information the way that he's been doing, on top of the increased amount of work that he's been doing with the bond, just seems to be able to, like, instead of add something to that communication piece, which we've already done with the exception of social media, is to kind of sustain what we're doing.
it feels like though, when you see like what Chris shared with me about the bond issue, when people were saying, well, if we vote no, then we'll pay less taxes. But when no one answers that, I'm not saying it would need to be a whole piece for Adam to do, but sometimes other people in the district, I think, maybe Sarah, sometimes could jump in and say, let me clarify here, and just give a short answer. Because so many people read that, I kind of feel like that's a crack that a lot of misinformation can just hang out there, and it doesn't get answered.
And I think we need to be very calculated with that then.
I
Again,
agree,
because
I
if
agree.
Sarah was going to do social media stuff, then we have to take something else off her plate, because that is there are hundreds of Williamston community sites, and there are hundreds of information, and this board worked
Well,
really
maybe not
hard.
even every one, but I'm saying when there's a really important question that deals with the bond we want to pass, sometimes I think it would behoove us to give the correct answer so everyone
Right.
can see
And
it.
I think we can do that. I think if you are on, so,
What I would suggest.
this, well,
what-
I want to say this point because I think there's a history here that we have to address. We have had several rogue things occur on social media from members where things just then got out of control. And it took a lot to rein that in, to be like, we're not engaging on social media. Like, we have to just kind of cut it. when it does come to bond stuff, there has been misinformation out there. So we have to, I think we have to trust, I would reach out to the people that are on that committee to say, maybe you should reach out to Adam and Sarah, figure out what the terminology should be and how you should do that, and put that out on social media on different sites. I think you are going down a negative rabbit hole if you're going to engage with some of those individuals, because no matter what you put on there, it is going to be wrong. And then you're in that dialogue, and we're not gonna win those.
Well, I think that's a good idea, what you said, to give them the people who to contact for more information.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, is I think the best solution is if you see something that is out there that is misinformation, to, again, say, I really feel like you should reach out to Dr. Spina, and here's his phone number. And he can give you more information about this. And try to shut it down sooner than it gets out of control, while still putting the onus back on the person that has the most information, that can share that information, and can explain it to the best of his ability.
I have seen some things on social media. I know a couple of those people, or one gentleman, like I reached out to one gentleman and said, can you please give this gentleman my phone number? I'd be happy to talk to him. He has no desire, they have no desire to hear the correct information. So that's why it's very tricky with social media, because when you feel like I'm gonna put out the correct information, you're gonna go down a very negative rabbit hole. So yes, if you see something, I would say please contact Dr. Speedy, he could explain this. I do know someone on one of the sites put that out there, and it was received with very negative, he's just going to lie to me, swear word, swear word, swear word. So that's, you can give them the information, we'll see where that goes, but I would not engage. Social media is a really tricky thing. So that is why we use the word sustain, because right now, I think Adam's got a lot to do with this bond. Whether it passes or doesn't, if it doesn't pass, then we're starting over to get another one to pass. If it passes, then it's trying to get this building and stuff going, so, it's tricky.
Well, I think the other thing, Deborah, that we were trying to say was that the things that have been going, we want to continue. And because we have all these other things, we didn't want to get rid of this goal, because we feel like things are moving in the right direction, and that it should still be a part of the evaluation. But specifically on board goals 2, 3, and 4, there were changes to the language or additions. Board goals 1 and 5 stayed the same, but the 2, 3, and 4 did change.
Well, and also to give some historical context, because it was before you were on the board, this was put as a board goal because we got feedback from the community to strengthen our communication. And so that's why we felt it necessary to keep some form of goal for communication.
Because we did have a conversation of, should we take this goal out? Have we accomplished this or not? And we said no, that we wouldn't keep the improve, we would say sustain based on what we already have. That doesn't mean that if we identify that we need to do something different, that Adam won't do that, but that we're trying to maintain what we have going right now too.
And a couple of years ago, Adam came to us and said, this is the number and this is exactly what I do to communicate, not only staff, but community, to board members, all that stuff. And it was a very long list. And Adam, do you remember the number of ways that you communicate out?
Well, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, but it's a link.
I'm not complaining about
Yeah, no,
the
we get it.
communication, but I always think that we never ever hit 100% communication to all the people all the time, and that
Never.
sometimes we miss ways that we could improve if we don't keep it up there in the forefront. That's
No,
all.
that's absolutely true. Like I mean, again, there's a big part of our population that does not have kids in school, and, you know, they're missing it. How do we reach them? How do we continue to do that?
I will say, one thing that Adam and I did talk about was that one piece of feedback that I had received was from past people that had kids that graduated recently that said, I used to get all this communication, now I get nothing, but I'm still interested. And the question was that I said to Adam was, is there a way to have someone opt in to stay on the list once their kids leave? Because right now, there's a cycling off, you know, your kids leave and you no longer get any communication. But some
Or-
of those people want to keep getting that.
Or
They
community
wanna keep
members who
it.
never had kids in the system that would like to get information. I mean, that's the piece.
That's a whole nother thing.
But that's the piece that usually gets
Yeah,
overlooked.
that's a whole nother thing.
Just saying.
And I don't know if that's even, if there's an
that's
opt-in list.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we could, you know, let's.
I mean, I see our
if you'd like
website is
communication,
pretty up to
you could.
date.
It is.
But if you don't have kids in the school system, you don't look at the website unless you want to know about the fitness center. I mean, that's
Well,
just.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something to investigate. Can we advertise at different things? If you want to receive information from your school, give us
Well,
your email.
and that was the purpose of the electronic board, which I don't think we use that to the fullest either, but that's another
I don't
story.
know. I don't know.
Another rabbit hole.
Communication is hard. It's hard for me being a past staff member where you, as staff members and teachers, work really, really hard in 100 different ways to communicate to their parents, and they never read it, and you spend a lot of time on it. And in honesty, we spend a lot of time communicating to community members, to parents in multiple different ways, and the rate of people opening emails or the rate of people attending things is incredibly small. And we see it on the board. We saw it during COVID. When they made the decision not to send their kids to school or to send their kids to school, they stopped paying attention. And when it was time to bring everybody back to school and we weren't doing online, then they all want, you know, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do this? Well, we have. We've been talking about it at every single board meeting. But you stop paying attention. So, I don't think we're ever, it's something that we have to constantly keep
It's
doing.
fluid all the time.
Yeah. Anything else?
So number 4, we added the improved district infrastructure so we could relate back to the bond work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And number 5 hasn't really, that was the one that originally we started 3 years ago about the, you know, the grading
That's
and
when
having
it's
the common grades
emphasis,
anyways,
yeah.
and they're just continuing to work.
Right.
Anything else? Because as of in another hour or so, these will be adopted as our board goals for the next 3 years. Okay. Next, theater production of The Importance of Being Earnest. Do you have anything you want to say about this show, or is it all just right here?
No, it's curriculum, so it's being brought to the board for approval. There's a synopsis and I think a way to access additional information on the show and the memo.
It is political satire. So if you've never seen this or read this before, I encourage you to read it. There may be some in the community that may not like it because of the political satireness of it, but it is a very funny play. It's a very good play. I did costumes and designed a set for it in college. So
I looked it up. I guess that wasn't, that's interesting you say that. I didn't get that from what I looked up, so maybe I didn't look up the right thing.
very good.
Yep.
I'd have to read it, I've never read it. I've heard
I had to
about
look it up, I had never heard of it.
Does she have copies of the script yet, or no? That has to be approved first?
I think we'd probably approve it before she does anything.
I hope so.
Maybe the
Yeah,
library
I
does.
mean, we have to approve it before she, I would not buy anything unless we approve it, I guess. I do encourage you to look this up because this will be on us. If you have any questions, I would reach out to Adam, or I would reach out to Adam. Next, I will put this on for motion next, is that 2 weeks, whenever, now in March? So do you due diligence? I know Dr. Delp, actually I do know Dr. Delp is very good at, reading the plays and what they want. He really does scrutinize them, and so I do trust
Yeah, he
bringing
knows,
that
he
forward.
knows.
He
Yeah,
would
he
do
does.
that. Next, purchase of high school furniture.
I mean, the play, just one more thing, I mean, the play is Oscar Wilde's most famous play, so, I mean, it is.
Oscar Wilde is kind
Yeah, it's a very good
You
play.
know, he's working, right?
But I'm saying political satire in the sense of the day, of when it was written, more than right now.
Yeah. Okay, furniture. Adam, do you want to talk about this or anything to add?
No, I mean, the board's aware, we've been working at revitalizing the main entrances to all of our facilities. This is the final one that needs to be completed. This is the front half of the high school office where the main, I guess you would call it the main office. As the year gets a little closer to its conclusion, and I feel more comfortable that our financial resources will allow for it, I will potentially bring the board the second half of this, which would address the back half of the office, which is the counseling, administrative, and athletic portion of that space. So, but this will get us through the front half, or the main office portion of the high school office.
Any questions about the furniture? Okay, put that up next time. Next, we need to pick our choice for Region 7 Board of Directors. Does anybody, I mean, they gave us their background on their paper. Does anybody know any of these individuals? Does
I think
anybody
last
have?
time we supported Jack Temsey, just because he's kind of from a rural area in our area, but that's the one thing I remember. So I would say, I don't know that that's changed, I mean, you know, but I guess I would support him in staying on.
Well, is he an incumbent? Because it looks like Dale,
Or he ran before, maybe he didn't.
Right, he
maybe
ran
didn't-
before.
Maybe
Ran
he
before.
didn't get in last time, I don't know. But I do remember he ran before and we
right,
had
I do
supported.
remember
and we had-
trying to look for someone that's kind of in our small school area.
Yeah. And he is, he's with the Eden Risa, so.
We do not have to pick a person tonight, correct? We vote on the person that we want to submit in March.
You need to, yes, you have to vote at the next meeting because the timeline of your vote comes like 2 days after the March meeting.
Maybe, yes. So I guess, I mean, I do remember Chris is correct. We did bring forward this person, Jack, just because of his, what was, his background and being somewhere similar to our area. If you have other ideas or know these personally, be ready to, we will have to move candidates to choose a candidate and vote on them in March. So if you want someone other than Jack, be ready to bring them so we can have a discussion and pick who we would like to go forward. Are we good? Are we ready to move on? All right, we have a leave request.
Yeah, the memo kind of outlines this. I think the board is familiar with the circumstances here. If there's no objections, I'd like to kind of inform Nancy that the board's supportive of this, even though it'll take you to the next meeting to formally approve it, which is ironically the same date as her leave would expire. But given the nature of the situation and her service to the district, I think this should hopefully be an easy one to support, if only informally, for the purposes of
Do
this
we need
meeting.
to, do we need to set aside the rules to vote on this for her? Because that does,
I think as long as you're, well, I mean, you could, but I mean, if you're not, if there's no objections raised, I think we can move forward with the understanding this will be approved.
so do we, so her first day back, unless she changes something and sets another thing, is March 4th, the day of our meeting. So we'll be voting to grant her leave the day she comes back.
Yeah, but
Formally.
in the absence of that, we'll
Yep,
just
okay.
move forward
Unless
accordingly.
you want
Unless you want to set aside the
vote
rules,
on
but-
it tonight.
I hate setting aside the rules, but I think it's
If
silly.
you can express our support, then I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
I mean, on the payroll side, she's all set.
yeah, it doesn't, it's not gonna matter us.
Formality.
So why would we?
Closed session, can I please have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved. Second.
So first by Chris, second by Deb. Amanda, will you take us through roll call?
Amanda, yes. Chris?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Nancy.
Yes.
Just announced to go to closed session.
All right. Okay, can I have a motion to come out of closed session, please?
I move that we come out of closed session.
Okay, so first Deb, second.
Second.
Second is Sarah. Will you take us through roll call, please?
Amanda? Yes. Chris?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously to come out of closed session.
Okay, we're moving on to our action items. So can I have a motion to approve our consent calendar?
I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on January 8th, 2024, and the special meetings held on January 17th and January 29th of 2024 as presented.
Second?
So first Sarah, second Chris. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do not have, the motion carries. We do not have any roll call items, so we have our separate action items. Can I have a motion for the Sherwood property?
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the 2024 Sherwood Road property lease as presented.
Second.
So first Deb, second Sarah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approve access for the Point Harbor Chris.
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education, pending approval of the district's E-rate grant application, approve the purchase of access point hardware from MOSS, quote number 347015643, for a total cost of $75,714.31.
Can I have a second?
Second it.
So first Chris, second Deb. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of leave of absence. This is for the one that we saw whenever our last board meeting was, the 17th.
I make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve leave of absence for Michelle McGee and Peggy Kerr as presented.
I second it.
So first Sarah, second Deb. Any other discussion?
And a quick point, the LOA that was contingent on the support for Vicky's leave has been completed. It's in the signature folder, so that's good to go.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Again, right here, the review of war goals, those will be added and will be there adopted, or they have been adopted tonight and will be added next meeting. We have some correspondence. One is the retirement of a very beloved teacher, Gail Cobb. She's been here, I think, 23 years, it said. She's been a pretty big staple in our community, and it'll be a pretty big loss, but it'll be exciting to see what she does. She's still really young, so her next adventure is gonna be, and she'll still be around when it's kind of small, but
I know what she's doing. But no, I had the good fortune of serving as principal of Explore for a number of years, and so I had a chance to observe Gail's instruction on many occasions, and I can truly say she's one of the best educators I've ever seen in terms of how she manages her classroom, the strong yet positive relationship she has with her students, and you know, as someone that likes to look at outcomes, the data that her class generates year in and year out in terms of student growth is amongst the best. I mean, it's just, some years I don't know if you can find a third grade class anywhere that can replicate the growth rates that our students demonstrate over the year. It's one of the few times ever in education we could actually like look mid-year at some growth rates that weren't getting to the point you wanted, put in some new intervention systems that of course you would implement, and then actually see after those took place the kids' numbers like improving. Like you don't always see that in education despite all your efforts. And you could actually watch trendline data improve almost in real time based on her instruction. So it is a huge loss for us, but she's definitely earned the opportunity to move on to her next opportunity, and big loss. But wish her well. She's
correspondence is the flyer for Young Fives kindergarten kind of enrollment orientation information. The no left turn sign information is in there. We do not have any citizens up in the audience, so no citizen comments. Do we have any board member reports or requests?
I'm just curious, I guess it's just a question. I think the no left turn is gonna probably take some getting used to, and I wonder if there's been any thought to putting that on the community side.
Community.
Sign, the electronic
Sorry,
sign.
the electronic board.
sign?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah,
Oh, the,
sorry.
the city has put it on, I think, multiple Facebook pages, and from what I understand, folks have been replicating it as they do on social media, so.
Also, how many, like you did say they gave, today was the first day and they gave.
This morning, they had 12 people that turned left, and Chief Weiss was there handing them that piece of paper, basically, just reminding them, and then we had 4 this afternoon. So they, for the most part, I would say it got out, and if it didn't, they're out there helping educate folks.
And the
so.
sign's up and they still.
Signs are up, yeah, signs are up, but, if it's a habit, right, if you've always done
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they're working on just making sure people are aware, and they're not writing tickets or
Sure.
anything, so. just
Okay,
cool.
sounds like a good plan.
How many?
It'll work its way.
So you said 12 people were given. How many people typically turn? We talking the majority of people turn left there, or like?
It's not majority, I think it's just sometimes it looks like it's a faster way to go. It's
Okay.
not, and it's also much more dangerous. As our crossing guard said this morning, it's the first morning she's been out there where she didn't see almost a close call.
Nice.
So I think it's already
Oh, really?
having some dividends as far as the safety component. And again, it's a means to an end. We have a plan for just redoing all that and making a very safe and efficient way to get kids to and from school, connected to the bond. But in the meantime, this is probably as good as we're going to do. So a lot of appreciation to the Williamston Police for supporting this.
Thanks. Any other board reports, concerns, requests? All right, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
So first Sarah, second